Hi there, we're in the last part, hopefully last part or second last, but I was speaking in the previous part that God has made it clear to me, guys, that we're going home, but not before it gets much worse for Christians, meaning that this is by far the worst time to be hopeful for the earth. We ought to have hope for the earth insofar as we're looking into the millennial reign, but there is no more life left here for Christians. It's only going to get worse. We're going to be disregarded in increasing measure, and some of the most respected and regarded men in the faith and women are going to start just getting ignored flat out. They're going to lose court cases. They are, the way it is that they're fighting for their religious freedoms, evangelists are going to get arrested on the street, and imagine that they're going to get let go with just like a slap on the wrist, in the sense that, and the magistrate will acknowledge that this person was well within their eyes to do so, yet they're going to find themselves sitting out in prison for like 3-4 years. And nobody will listen to them. No matter how much they appeal, they're going to be regarded such incredible criminals that they are going to be denied bail and stuff. And we're speaking about like the next door upstanding guy, the doting dad and the loving husband that can do no harm, that everybody in the community absolutely loves, is going to spend like 4 or 5 years in prison. And all the courts, literally going higher and higher, where it is that you can appeal your particular case, will all vote against him, against the veracity of the constitution of their countries. Like, the law in their lands will stand with them, but they will be ignored. That's what's about to happen. And it is going to send such an electric shock wave up the spinal cords of Christians that they're going to initially respond with, let me not really use the word entitlement, but it's going to be like with me in the beginning when I got harassed. I had lived in such a free society that when I got abused, I still had a spunky little attitude. I was feisty because the law was on my side, and yet the law was ignored in my case. I lost everything because South Africa decided to become corrupt against its own statute canon. To this day, the law of the country stands with my side. I've got what in legal terminology they would call exculpatory evidence, irrefutable, in my favor. Yet it was blatantly and very brazenly in broad daylight with no shame ignored by my company, by all the legal structures. I went to the Legal Aid Board, the CCMA, etc. They all ignored a glaring law that was standing with me. And I couldn't believe the living daylights out of it. And I fought for all of 5 seconds before I was quickly woken up by God that I'm going to waste money in trying to fight these structures, because they will continue to ignore the law that obviously stands with you, because there are more of them, and they will sweep this under the carpet until you have disappeared altogether from society. So don't pay a lawyer and take this to court, because they're going to run you around in circles until you have nothing to your name. Rather, use whatever little money you have to enable yourself along. I will show you the next steps going forward. Lo and behold, 8 to 9 years down the line, I'm still unemployed. I have still been disenfranchised. I have lost everything that I could ever have worked for, and nobody even regards me. When I speak, people gaze upon me like I'm stupid, I'm dumb. They walk away, they cut me in the middle of sentences, so much so that I no longer talk to people more than just saying hello and goodbye. I only speak at length and expand, therefore, my intelligence in this platform that barely ever gets perused. But in South Africa, I don't have a voice. I am nobody. I am looked at like I'm a second-class citizen. But initially, I was feisty. Initially, I had an attitude because I understood myself as being on the right. I thought that I could make like Aaron Brockovich, and with all of my eloquence and my vocabulary, basically diss these people into shape. But it fired back at me because of the level of moral turpitude of my countrymen. So what I went through is literally a foreshadowing of what's coming for the body of Christ on the earth. So it is pointless to try and patch up the earth, because the earth is dead, it's dying, it is sinking like the Titanic, and only the Lord is going to come and do a version 2.0 in the millennium. So therefore, all that you ought focus on doing now as the body of Christ is what I'm doing. Trying to snatch as many people, however few of them there may be, out from the flames, get them into the life buoy or the lifeboat so that they can be taken in the rapture or survive the tribulation. That's the work that you ought to be doing now, because to try and vote right that your governments might put a conservative president on top that will then favor Christian principles, that is not going to happen, because even if you were to get such a man or a woman in power, that man or woman is going to be so badly resisted in the position of power that they're in, that they're ultimately either going to be impeached or completely ignored, like what happened, for instance, with Donald Trump in the United States of America. You are not going to get yourselves heard anymore, Christians. The age of grace is ending. And so because it is ending, Christian persecution is going to reach a height, and Christian disregard is going to reach an even greater height, where you will be completely ignored even though you're completely right. And you will be right in a very provable way. Disgustingly so, however, you will be ignored. Yeah, you will be completely ignored. So what I'm doing right now is to try and create a shorter teething phase, or an adjustment phase for Christians who will listen to me, so that they don't have to go through the lengthy period of time that it took me to finally realize that I can't just rock up and quote the law and get my day in court, because wickedness is so extreme that they will ignore the very statute that they signed into legislation to persecute you. It'll be irrational. Thank you. It will have no sense. It will not make any sense at all, yet it will nonetheless stand. Only look at the case in the United Kingdom of the woman who the court voted against her when she wanted to stand on her religious freedoms because they wanted to force her son to partake in a pride event. They will completely ignore their own statute against you. So all you gotta do is look forward to the millennial reign and how you give yourself comfort, because every dream you've ever had, every structure you have ever tried to erect to secure your future is about to be severely undermined. So how do you overcome that? You know, guys, when you work for something and it does not bear any fruit, it's very heartbreaking because it's your hard-earned labor. Do you understand? It is the work by the sweat of your brow that you hope to get rewarded for. And when you don't get that reward, you can come out on the other side quite bitter. How you eradicate such bitterness? With me, for instance, I studied like a dog and I didn't get my degree. With me, for instance, I worked like a dog and I didn't get my promotion. I worked like a dog and I didn't get to maintain my status as a participant in the South African economy, as one who is contributing to it. I lost my standing. I lost my reputation despite being a stellar human, literally above reproach. I am responsible, I am loving, and I am kind, and I am absolutely disregarded for all of those character virtues that I have got. No one cares. But great is my reward where? In heaven. Just in case you have no, just in case you struggle to get inspired or encouraged by heaven as an ultimate place where you're going to get your, what do you call this? Your reward. Understand that that reward that you are going to get because of you belonging to heaven not only applies to heaven, but according to Mark 10, clearly displays here that you're going to get it on earth. Everything that you have lost, you're going to get 100-fold over. It is written in Mark 10 from the verses that I read just before coming to this part. There are people who struggle to look forward to heaven because it is expressly stated in heaven and about heaven that there is no marriage there, and that there are no children therefore being born to couples there, married couples there. There is no, whatever it is that are the joys and the pleasures of this earth where we get to be fruitful and multiply, they don't exist in heaven. So it is very hard for young people to look forward to heaven for those reasons, because they still have these aspirations of not only building legacies, getting their homes, getting their companies, businesses, but also having thriving families, like having children, falling in love, all that jazz. So it becomes rough to encourage or inspire perhaps like a 17 or an 18-year-old or even a 21 or a 25-year-old that's yet to have children and get married, that heaven is your resting place and that you're going to get your reward in full when you get there, even if you did not quite get that husband on the side of the earth. When I was working at MTN, I had a few, it's an issue in the black community where we don't get married. Like, black women are just this unmarried conglomerate. Okay, men are just not marrying us fast enough. And I had quite a few colleagues who were at older years, like they were all in their late 30s like I am now, but at the time I was in my mid 20s, and some of them were friends. And I remember this one woman, she was unmarried and she was like 36, 37, and she was always so broken. She was always so sad that she's yet to get a husband, even though she's been praying. She's yet to get a husband. And I remember in my mind thinking at like 26 that I was as young as I was. I remember thinking about her age, and I was like, girl, you are 37, you ain't never gonna get married now. And I was a hypocrite. Even as a Christian, I was thinking in my heart that at 37, girl, even if you do get married, you're gonna have to take some guy with like a divorce and 3,000 kids out there. I am now that woman. I am now the friend that I had at MTN that was struggling with the fact that she doesn't have any children and no husband at the age of 37, and it looks like there's no man coming in sight. Must I now settle? And so therefore, to look forward to, as a woman like that, who has only ever longed to be a mom, only ever longed to be a wife, and then you just like don't get that? For somebody to tell you, Garabo, you worked really hard, great is your reward in heaven, it is not encouraging, it is not comforting. There is nothing seemly or comely about heaven when you have not lived on earth in a way that fulfills all your dreams that are only feasible on earth. Since you can't get married in heaven and you can't have children in heaven, you can't continue to procreate and have babies in heaven. Like it's done. Like you're finished there. You're just brothers and sisters and it's all good in the hood. And when you're here on earth and you look at all these handsome men all over the show and how many of them could potentially be your husband, your heart kind of sinks. And every time I see a good looking Christian man that is speaking sense about Jesus, my heart just hurts, because it's like, but why don't I have one such person in my life? Where's my husband? I want to be in love. I want the babies. I want for somebody to, lovingly just brush my stomach during pregnancy. Am I never going to get that? Are you telling me that it's over? Like, just like that. Just like that. There is no comfort that comes to me in being told, great is your reward in heaven, God, because you worked very hard for Jesus. Jeremiah felt the same way. He was told he can't have a wife, and he mourned pretty much all his life about that. All his life. Sometimes heaven is not sufficient enough to be a motivation for a Christian when they are persecuted, when they're going through a lot, and they're told that at least when you get to heaven, you are going to have everything you want. No, you won't. Because in heaven, there is no procreation. In heaven, there is no husband. There's no falling in love. There is no falling in love. And that is an earthly experience that is very hugely blessed, right? But one that we can't take to heaven. In heaven, we must just embrace the state of being brothers and sisters forever and ever and ever. But there is no marriage. So where is the colorful, beautiful hope that we have as Christians who are suffering so severely, especially those, like I will speak largely to the Smyrnian conglomerate, like people who are so persecuted. They live in such bad countries like Afghanistan that the future is bleak. There is no joyously celebrating a wedding there that is Christian. There is also no feasibility of living a thriving, successful, prosperous, use all of your ideas to fulfill business ideas, to do something fruitful with your life and be bountiful. In Afghanistan, you gotta move to another country, and if you don't get asylum in another land, if you don't become a refugee elsewhere and therefore start from scratch there, you're basically going to have to embrace a very lowly, hard, earthly existence as a Christian. And so die without getting what you want. Die as a 17-year-old that gets killed in a suicide bombing or beheaded. Or you're just gonna have to accept that as a woman you can't study, you can't do all this, you can't thrive a business based on the ideas that you had because of the country that you live in, because you are a victim of your circumstances, very unfortunately so. Very unfortunately so. Well, how do you give a person like that hope? How do you give the Afghani girl hope that even though it's highly unlikely you're going to get married to a Christian man, how you're going to probably get sold off to some dude that's going to force himself on you as a Muslim? Like, how in the world do you give a hope to the Christian that is languishing in a prison camp in North Korea? She's only 23. She's never been married, never had children. How do you give her hope in Christ? You just tell her, well, girl, I'm sorry you were born kind of wrong. I'm sorry you were born in the worst part of the earth to be a Christian, but hey, great is your reward in heaven, where I can't marry, I can't have children, I can't thrive what I could have on the earth, since the Lord gave me a charge to be fruitful and multiply, but my country is making it impossible for me to be fruitful and multiply. The persecuted church is the greatest argument. It is the most compelling argument, the persecuted church, for procreation in incorruptible bodies in the millennial reign. It is the fulfillment of Mark 10, prophecy for the body of Christ all throughout history that never got answered prayer. The soldier that died at 19 on the battlefield because his country conscripted him before he could marry his wife, but he loved God. Where is his blessed hope? Where does he find fulfillment of neither eye seeing, nor ear hearing, nor mind conceiving that which God has prepared for him? There is no hope in one who is in the grave already for children and a wife, even though they had it severely on earth, when the Lord made it clear that if you commit your ways to him, he will give you the desires of your heart. So essentially, God has then disregarded the prayers of a massive chunk of the Christian community that happened to die before they could have children or get married or fulfill their earthly dreams because they died too young or too persecuted, imprisoned for their faith. The Lord gives what we want in prayer, and we ask for it because we know that it's possible for us to get it. And yes, sometimes we do get it. Like, there are people who have absolutely realized what they ask for from the Lord and they're very grateful. But there are others of us that literally there is no end in sight to my sorrow. I'm not about to get married tomorrow, guys. Neither have children. I'm not about to meet an honest man. I am being targeted right now by filthy, worthless, witchcraft-loving ransackers of my general constitution. I keep on getting nightmares of exploitation of my situation. And because I am suffering as badly as I am, I'm also not getting looked at by the right men because of how warped is the way that people think here on earth. Where then am I going to get what I asked for in prayer? Did the Lord just intend for me to live a very sad, uncomfortable, unfortunate life that I might one day just, get a really great mansion in heaven, but one where I'm still just going to have John and Jamie on the side here just as a brother, but I don't get to fall in love? I've had a dream about a year ago where we had just arrived in the rapture in heaven, a whole bunch of us in white robes. We had just been raptured and we were in the clouds. And then I looked at a distance, and I've already told you guys about this dream, and I saw a guy this one Christian guy that earlier that same day I had watched a video of his on YouTube, right? He was younger than me, perhaps he could have been 19, and at the time last year I was 37, okay, righto. And I saw this guy at the distance, and feelings between us sparked. No, the Lord was not telling me that that guy's my husband, but he was telling me that we are going to realize that we still have romantic feelings for other people, when we get to heaven, because the Lord is going to be matchmaking. The reason why the Lord used that very young guy, that 19-year-old, is because he was, again, 19. He was yet to be married, yet to have children, yet to do anything with his life. He was showing me that my future husband is somebody that is that untainted. He died very young, very, very young, and so therefore could not have children, could not could not have children, could not get married, could not go and grab a legacy, do whatever it is that was supposed to be fruitful and multiply. His life was cut short before he could do anything with his life. So maybe that's why the Lord used that young kid from YouTube. I don't think that he's the actual husband guy, but I had feelings for him. He was showing me that what you are is going to be, you're going to get what you want in prayer. And on top of that, that young man that I dreamt about, that kid that I dreamt about that I had feelings for, the Lord was also showing me that age is not going to be of any essence. Dead saints of old that died at 18, 19 or whatever, they will have grown out the rest of their years and gotten to maybe a 25 to a 35-year-old looking body and stayed that size. And so in your incorruptible bodies are going to be the same. So age won't matter. Therefore, there will be unions happening. And I've already spoken about this in my previous part of people that were born in the 1800s that died without children, having never been married and all that jazz. And they will literally get married to somebody who was born in 1995 that got raptured with Jesus when, that got raptured in this era, with us who are going to get caught up. And so he will have grown up until, I guess, whatever is the age that we're all going to be for eternity, and met his wife only later because the dude died in war, or he died from the bubonic plague, or before he was at the age of 12, but he loved God. There are people that are going to have their unions finalized in the sky, in the heavenlies, and when we come back down on earth and establish the 1,000-year millennial reign, we're going to get married, we're going to have children, we're going to fulfill legacies and all that stuff. So when does a person get hope? When they're like me. It's indeed the blessed hope, the rapture. 7 years we're preparing, we're fighting a war, coming back to make war with the deadliness of the earth down below, following which we're then going to celebrate 1,000 years with Jesus, reigning with him. And in that time, we're going to be like Adam and Eve, the version that does not corrupt, the version that does not fall away. Adam and Eve could have babies. Adam and Eve, if at all they did not sin, would have been able to have children. Eve would not have given birth in pain. She would not have pain in childbirth. She would have just given birth to Cain, Abel, Seth, etc., going all into the future without there being qualms. We're going to be like Adam and Eve while we are on the earth. It is only in heaven where there is no marriage anymore. But on earth, right here, the millennial reign, it's still this era. It is still this side. We have got incorruptible bodies that belong in heaven, that are of a heavenly nature. But those bodies are going to be on earth, meaning that we will still be able to be fruitful and multiply. And only at the end of the millennial reign will all such conception and baby making, legacy creating, business building, being fruitful and multiplying and filling the earth, only then will that stop. Because now we're done. We're finished. And the Lord knows how he's going to somehow make that work for us once we enter into heaven. I believe that this is absolutely true, because there is no way that God would have just disregarded his own word in saying, ask and I will give to you. And there is no way that God would have completely disregarded the glory of an earthly life that cannot be lived in heaven, because there is no procreation in heaven for some and yet give it to others. He is not a respecter of persons. And there is no, the persecuted church is very near and dear to the heart of God. They are the Christians on earth that don't get what they want. They don't get what they ask for. They just live a very hard life from the beginning to the end and are completely ignored until they die. But God has their back and he loves them and he says, I'm going to give you what you ask for in prayer. That is no different. So therefore, to say that it's over for a kid that dies at 18, albeit having had great dreams to live a beautiful life, wanting to get married, is to say that God does not care for the prayers of some and cares, however, for others. And also, it is to say that God does not regard the desires of the hearts of the persecuted church that tend to not be able to live a good earthly life, in favor for the American church or the South African church or the church of a country that does not persecute Christians. So those of you, God says, there are parts in the Word of God where the Lord speaks about you have received your reward in full. So when the Pharisees that pray in public, and he says that they've received the reward in full, but you who pray in secret and in private, great is your reward in heaven. God has a plan to give a person that has prayed to him or has worked for him gifts that they did not receive, rewards that they did not receive for the work that they put in. I personally have been severely ignored. Everything that I've ever tried to do, people have been disregarding of it for almost a decade. All of my Christian walk I've been walking with no reward. All of it, I've gotten no reward. I've prayed, I have fasted, I have literally gotten no answered prayer. I've gotten no answered prayer. So I'm either lost, or God is a liar, or I'm still about to get what I asked for in prayer, just not yet. And frankly, I think the third is correct. We're going to get what we asked for in the millennial reign. I don't think that people that got their husbands on this side will still get married then. They'll probably just be able to proliferate their families and what have you. But I do believe that there are certain people that God is going to give what they asked for in then. Because it just makes sense. It just makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it just makes sense. Otherwise, it says God is a liar. And it says God has ignored prayer. And it says God has favored some people based on where they were born on the earth on top of others. Many who are first will be lost. And many who are lost will be first. And I'm currently lost. And the only hope that I'm sitting on right now is that I'm going to get everything I wanted. Just not yet. That's the only thing that keeps me going. It's what keeps my lamp lit at night. The only thing that gives me hope for tomorrow is that even if I were to menopause prematurely, I will still have my children, because this body is not the one that's going to be giving birth to my first child. It's that one. It's the one that's going to get caught up in those clouds. It's the one that's going to meet its husband in the air, and it's the one that's going to come back down with Jesus and reign for 1,000 years, and so therefore have as many babies as my 1,000-year aging body, but without aging, will carry. I have spoken all that to discourage Christians from trying to juice the earth or trying to patch up the earth, because it's over. I am trying to discourage believers to stop trying to fix this place. It's unfixable. Only one person is going to establish a righteous reign that is going to make it feasible for you to get all your dreams to come true. And it's Jesus. And we are at a time when he is gathering as many people for himself as possible before he reaps us into heaven and wreaks havoc on the earth. And we have got to proliferate that agenda just as he's proliferating it, and stop being so earthly minded, because we are leaving and we're coming back. And when we come back, we're going to get our dreams come true. Next part.